Real Talk Real Estate with Hill International Realty. Today's topic, why Central Texas seems to be able to sidestep some of the negative effects of today's ever-changing economy. And welcome back to Real Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Jason Hill, managing broker with Hill International Realty. Today we have a treat. We are interviewing Matt Patton from AngeloEconomics. He has quite an extensive resume when it comes to economics around our country and globally. In AngeloEconomics, I mean, you guys do quite a number of think tank activities for all sorts of industries. It has grown through the years. We were just talking about that, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for having me. Yeah, AngeloEconomics over the last 27 going on 28 years. We've done over 650 economic development strategies for towns, cities, counties, states, countries. We've done over 250 economic impact studies for companies large and small, and we also do corporate site selection. We've cited over $26 billion worth of projects. So, yeah, we've got a lot going on, but as you mentioned, we also do that think tank space as well, looking at what's happening in our local economy, what's happening in the regional economy, what are some of those trends, and looking beyond just the data and taking into those other factors, qualitative things that are a little bit harder to put a dollar sign or a value on.
That's exactly correct. And for us in the real estate industry, obviously the economy is a big driver. Well, I would say the real estate industry is a big driver to the economy, and the economy is a big driver to the real estate industry. We're in a time where everything is dynamic. So from your perspective, just globally right now with two wars going on, different parts of the world, the temperature of international relations and how it's all tied into the global economy. I guess all I can say is we're in a dynamic time. How are you guys looking at it?
Well, I think dynamic's one of those words that suggests there's a lot of motion, a lot of uncertainty, and we're in a brand new day, not to be terribly cliche about that, but I think we're in a space where previous events don't necessarily have the same meaning as they once did, right? Coming out of the pandemic, all of the disruptions to the status quo, and then certainly external factors such as wars that you mentioned and some of the uncertainties around global supply chains that we've observed over the past couple of years have really made us take pause and think about what's really important to, first and foremost, a local economy. But then how do we also keep that local economy engaged, connected to the global economy, but also stay on the avant-garde side of things? How does a city like Austin keep its position as a really go-to place while not falling victim to some of the kind of ups and downs that other communities have faced? How do we stay aggressive, innovative, and unique, and maintain that status as a place where people want to be and do business?
And so having you here is great to get your perspective on it, because you guys have your pulse on the world economy. How are these things affecting our economy here in Texas and in Central Texas?
There's always that weight of what's going on in the world being felt. One of the things that has really epitomized the Texas miracle, the growth of Austin, is how even in uncertain times all around us, the Texas and the Central Texas economies are relatively strong. When we were at the different parts of the pandemic, whatever the new normal is now, it was Austin that was leading the way on recovery in terms of looking at unemployment rate and economic activity. And one of the hallmarks of all of that activity was the amount of innovation that was able to take place in Austin. And that really speaks to the strength of the workforce that we have in Austin, in Central Texas. The ability to look at really unprecedented circumstances and figure out a way to make things work. And not only work, but work really effectively. While many things across the world weren't working nearly as well as a lot of people had hoped.
enough to the point of now we are housing, world headquarters of some pretty large, private sector businesses, and that is definitely helping to create a very solid foundation in a very dynamic world economically for us here in Central Texas. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can look at some of the state level policies, tax policies, and some of the business friendly environmental conditions that we've created. But when we look, being inside the triangle here in Texas and then being in Austin specifically, the continuous inflow of really talented, smart, creative people, coupled with being the state capital, you've got this influx of people daily, hundreds of people coming here daily with different ideas and different solutions to problems that exist right now, but also thinking about the problems and the solutions of tomorrow and really keeping us on the forefront. And yeah, these corporate headquarter relocations and business expansions here only accelerate that.
So, and you're correct, it definitely accelerates it. Then when they get here locally, we have Austin, the city, the challenges of affordable housing is obviously a priority, and there, I mean, the pricing has gotten pretty incredible when you're talking about Central Austin itself, and we're starting to feel that a little bit as we move out into the outlying areas as well. Is that going to continue to be a priority for the public sector in trying to figure out that paradigm of folks not being outpriced to live in Austin?
Sure, it's absolutely something that we need to be aware of, and I think everyone's aware of that. But then awareness is the first part, right? What are some of those solutions moving forward? If we look at some of the other places around the country that have dealt with really expensive housing, we look at some of the geographic limitations. So it might be a coastal area where you can't expand into the ocean, right? Or you can't expand into a mountainside. I mean, those are just going to be really cost prohibitive things. We are fortunate here that we have a lot of land where we can spread out. But the more we spread out, then we're talking about things like commute times and do I really want to be driving 2.5 hours into work, those types of things. So looking at getting a little bit more creative, do we want to go with some more vertical mixed use development strategies? What are some of the local level policies that we can do that address housing inequities? And how do we imagine or reimagine downtown areas being accessible for everyone? All of the support jobs that make those high rises work, we can't have those folks commuting in 90 minutes, 2 hours to do some of those tasks, right?
Correct. Especially when you look at the infrastructure of the the transportation industry. I mean, the infrastructure sometimes is not. I mean, here it's not going to support it yet. Austin definitely fell behind in regards to commutability.
Sure. Yeah, we look at other places. I won't mention the people mover in Detroit, but other large cities and their metro systems are a little bit more efficient and effective at moving people around. That doesn't mean we can't do that here, right? But the opportunities before us. How do we rethink infrastructure, both the buildings, but also the transportation network? How do we get people in and out of the city in a more efficient or effective way? And that might involve rethinking downtowns. Instead of one traditional central business district, we have a more distributed city.
And that's coming in that conversation could be a full day seminar
Yes,
on how to get around that. Interest rates. The Feds have come in. The inflation rate at 2%. Is there a way to raise that a little bit so the Feds don't choke us down with the incredible volley of interest rate hikes that have happened over the past 18 to 24 months? Should they be looking at overall benchmarks in this new time, in this new age, that could help just make the reconciliation of everything a little bit easier on the economy and on the working guy?
Sure. When we look at the working class, and I'll throw myself into that category, right, is we want to see lower interest rates on everything. I don't want to have to pay more than what I could have been paying, 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, whatever you will. The Fed is walking a really tricky balance right now between, not letting things get out of control, so trying to mute some of those spends on larger scale items, but also we need to keep money circulating throughout the economy. And so again, it's part of that conversation we were just having about the affordability. Is it something that here, with housing being as expensive as it is that only exasperating some of those things that we're feeling on the interest rate side of things? I think we're feeling it everywhere. I've got family and friends in the Midwest who are feeling this as well. So I don't think it's exclusively one geography or another. But it certainly doesn't help when we're talking about housing prices as expensive as they are right here in Central Texas.
And even for the development here locally, we're seeing a big trend of build to rent now. So you have rental prices that are increasing as well. So a lot of the criteria that has come through the generations is completely changing now. I mean, sure, we can talk about when interest rates were lower, but housing prices were lower also as well. So it's just kind of, how do people wrap their arms around this new way of being, and to be prosperous, right? And to be able to meet their financial responsibilities.
Right. We're also prisoners of the moment in some regards. If we look back to interest rates in the 80s and, first-time home buyers coming in with a 17% interest rate, they're looking at today going, you know what, it's not that bad. But, with historically low interest rates that we've experienced the last few years, a sudden uptick really, it's felt. But, if we look at a 30 or 45-year or 50-year period, then, okay, they're not as high as what they once were. But that's almost irrelevant to the conversation right now. Is we still got bills to pay right now. And
correct.
Increasing interest rates aren't helping that situation. Your point about the build to rent and what can we do with some of these different buildings and new developments is really a conversation about rethinking place. And if we think about what is a downtown supposed to be, how is it supposed to function, right? We can reimagine that not as just a 9-to-5 business place, but is this the opportunity for downtowns to become family focused, where we can have schools and more public spaces and more of the amenities that would bring families back into some of these downtown areas, and have a reimagined look.
Correct. And the only challenge to that is just time, right? Time, because we had the pandemic and all this happened when there was so much in development in regards to the downtown area, with the hospital going up, with the state putting in more office buildings. So I mean, that took time to prepare and time to actually apply. But then you had this kind of bizarre event go down, which changed the way we think about how we go to work. So a reimagining that is also going to take some time to reimagine it and then catch up to. And it could be late or it could be early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on what's happening at that time.
Right. I think one of the strengths that we see here in Austin, and I'm going to use Austin as the MSA, is that we've got a bunch of different communities that are at different points of that waiting. Are they going to be early? Are they going to be late? Different communities getting a little bit more aggressive about reimagined downtown areas where there's a good live, work, play balance. Some of
the domain was considered that. I mean, I remember reporting when the domain first opened. I mean, that kind of there was the new Austin downtown. So but that was 10, 15 years of development, right?
Right. And I think we're seeing this. Yeah, and the domain is exactly that, right? This reimagined Austin's second downtown. Mm-hmm. But being a little bit more nimble, looking at some of the recent and ongoing developments in Round Rock, with some of the downtown housing that's going in there, looking at some of the expansions that we're seeing in places like Hutto.
The co-op, we just did a whole piece on
Right.
the Hutto co-op, which is kind of a whole new reimagined deal for sure. Yep.
Right. So the communities that aren't as big as Austin, which are most, right, have a little bit more dynamicism about them, the ability to move a little bit quicker. Because you're absolutely right. This takes a lot of planning to say we want an 80-story building downtown. That's going to take a lot of thought, a lot of planning that goes into that. But if we're only talking 4, 5, 6 stories in a place outside of the central business district, okay, we can move a little bit quicker in thinking about that.
What do you think? I know you guys are famous for this here locally. How does the outlook? How is the outlook for folks still moving to Central Texas for investments in regards to housing? Are we still going to be in a housing shortage? Looking between now and 5 years, where are we at?
I mean, the Austin area is going to continue to grow. We only have to go out as far as Taylor and along the 130 corridor to see all of the growth potential. But to one of my earlier points, we still have a lot of land,
Correct.
right, where we can
Correct.
expand. Other
Correct.
places, we look at the coasts, other areas, they're limited in that way. We can spread in all 4 directions to kind of build that out. The housing cost part of that, right, that's going to be an ongoing challenge. How do we mitigate some of those land acquisition costs and all of the development stages of growth where we're still in a place where people can afford to live here and not push further and further out? But if you would have asked me 15 years ago if Thrall was going to be part of a
Right.
functional city, I'd be like, that's nuts. But here we are, right? And
Right.
we're almost out
Right.
to Rockdale. By the time you get to
Correct.
Rockdale, you're halfway
Correct.
to A&M. But this is what we're looking at: is we're getting a much more distributed MSA, and it's expanding. So there'll be opportunities to go to other places in and around Central Texas that we have historically considered part of the Austin MSA that I think will help offset some of that. People are going to find different opportunities. And that's been one of the hallmarks of Austin, right? Is people that come to Austin are going to come up with innovative solutions to pressing problems.
As long as local governments are working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes hand in hand, right? You can't have one without the other. And is it business friendly, but is it also trying to make sure that everyone can participate in the economy?
How do you think the kind of rise of the digital blockchain, Bitcoin and all those sorts of things are impacting our economy? And will it continue? I mean, I know that when you were probably doing your studies, that wasn't something you guys were
No, that's
discussing
good.
back in the day. So I mean, that you guys have to be embracing how that is playing a role in this machine as well.
Right. And Austin is very much a growth machine, right?
Yes.
It is able to respond to emerging technologies or different approaches to doing business and fold that in and make it part of, well, yeah, that's just what we do. And blockchain is no different. It's something that, yeah, you're right. 5, 10 years ago, people were like, what? What is that? And now it's just part of the economic ecosystem. Is how do we make this a more advantageous tool for Austin? And so, yeah, do I see that as an integral part, as just a general part of the economy? I think it represents Austin's economy in many ways. It's an innovation. It's something that you didn't see on the horizon a few years ago, and now here it is. And there'll be something else that comes down the pipeline that people today were saying, I had no idea what this was. But then, my strong belief is that Austin will be right there at the forefront leading that charge.
How are you guys seeing Austin grow? South is kind of catching up with North in regards to, just services and that sort of thing. We have Elon Musk and Tesla and new developments in that South kind of East corridor that has traditionally been really a whole lot of nothing out, past the airport outside of the racetrack. Are you seeing Austin kind of grow in every different direction? I mean, that's kind of how we're seeing it. Are you guys seeing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this whole notion that Austin and San Antonio are different metro areas now, I think, is kind of gone by the wayside. It
Indeed,
is now
indeed,
one large metro
indeed,
area. We have some geography that's going to slow down westward expansion going through the hill country a
for
little
sure.
bit, but we're still seeing growth in places like Atlanta, right? That's going to happen. What's the path of least resistance in terms of geography is pushing east, looking right through that 130 corridor, getting out towards Route 95, some of those corridors. But you're going to see expansion where you've already got utility districts in place and where there's water to support
I was just
residential
going to say water is
communities.
going to be our biggest challenge here, right? In
Right,
Central
and
Texas,
that's
water.
something that we need to avoid, right? We've got to have enough capacity so people can turn on the shower in the morning and wash the dishes. So long as those basic things are in place, that's where we'll see the first wave of growth. And a good case study is just to watch where the developments are going in and around Taylor. Right? Huge influx of workers coming, and then you'll see where the development is taking place, where the infrastructure is coming online, and that the housing is going to follow suit.
So for folks who are on the edge now, of purchasing or renting, young professionals, folks who are upgrading, empty nesters, in this real estate world, people are constantly moving for different reasons. Is Austin and Austin, metro area still a good bet? I mean, are we still looking at above average appreciation rates into the future?
I say yes. And I just look at what is the anticipated growth going to be like. People are still valuing Austin as a place to be and the metro area as a place to be. We only need to look at the sustained growth of Texas, the Triangle, Austin MSA, saying, yeah, people still want to be here. And there's always going to be a need for new folks in this area because of some of those anchor institutions that other areas that might have been advantageous a few decades back just don't have. We can't ignore the fact that it's a state capital. You've got UT, and it's not just UT, it's the dozens of really high quality colleges and universities in and around the city. St. Ed's, Houston Tillotson, you got Concordia, and those are just the ones in the city, right? But there's always an influx of people coming to the city that are going to need certain services and different support industries there on top of those bigger anchor institutions. You had mentioned Tesla, and obviously we've got Samsung here.
Oracle, right?
Oracle,
Meta. I mean,
Dell,
they're all here,
right? They're all here,
and all bringing ancillary business activity with them.
That's right. The supply chains are being fleshed out locally, right? And so that's going to mean more economic growth, so long as we keep policies in place that are supportive of that growth, but also supportive of the people calling this region home.
Matt, any other words of wisdom or advice? That I mean, you're so high up, in regards to just kind of sifting through the economy and all the things that affect it. Just any kind of real world advice to young folks kind of trying to figure it all out in regards to buying or renting or that sort of thing.
I don't know if this sounds cheesy or not, but just look hyper locally. Is your little neck of the woods a good place to be? And more often than not in this area, the answer is yeah, absolutely. I love my Round Rock neighborhood.
Right. We're just Hutto. We're Hutto, Round Rock, so we're right near each other. Sure.
Right.
Which Austin has come up here. I mean, this wasn't like this 10 years ago. I mean, we're in Austin now, really. You have the look and feel. I mean, it really has made its way out here.
Right. Yeah. And so just look for those neighborhoods, and you'll see the real time strength of the economy, because you see these dynamic changes being made in places like Hutto, of the east side of Round Rock, right? all the way out that 79 corridor, and that's not the only corridor that's experiencing growth. We talk about
The Parma corridor also.
Yeah. So that's where you're going to see the real strength of our economy, not just looking at what's going on in the downtown or the domain. Yeah, those places are really important for economic development, but it's some of those, different parts that are really making Metro Austin sustain itself.
Exactly. All right. Well, beautiful. Matt Patton, it truly a pleasure. Appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're probably getting pulled in all different directions, but you took the time out for us, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Jason, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
And thank you for listening. This is Real Talk Real Estate.